So let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually checked your bank account and paid real attention? Not the quick panic glance after your card got declined. Not the late night scroll through your banking app when you were lying awake stressing out. I mean a calm, intentional look at where you really stand financially. Most people have a strange relationship with money. They either check it constantly when they are anxious, or they avoid it completely because they do not want to face what they might find. And both of those habits, they keep people stuck. Because here is what almost nobody tells you about managing money. Your financial results are not mainly driven by your income, your budget, or even your spending patterns. They are driven by awareness. And most people move through life financially blind, making decision after decision with no real-time sense of where they actually are. Then they wonder why nothing improves. Today I want to show you a habit that takes 60 seconds, costs nothing, needs no spreadsheet, and can completely change how your brain handles money. And yeah, that sounds like clickbait. But the science behind it is honestly pretty crazy. So let's get into it. I'm Bobby, and over the last 6 weeks, I went deep into behavioral psychology, neuroscience research on habit formation, and some seriously interesting studies on how financial awareness changes decision-making below the conscious level. If you feel like you are trying to get your money together, but never really gaining traction, if you keep making budgets that fall apart, if you mean well but keep getting the wrong outcomes, or if you just feel disconnected from your financial reality, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it helps. Because what I am about to share is not another budgeting method. It is not another app. It is not about slashing expenses or making more money. This is about changing your relationship with money by working with the way your brain already functions. And the craziest part is that the whole thing takes 1 minute a day. That's it. 1 minute that can change everything. Let me show you why. Here is the idea that completely grabbed me the first time I read about it. In behavioral psychology, there is something called a feedback loop. Basically, any system you want to improve needs current information about its present condition. Think about driving a car. You are getting feedback non-stop. You see your speed on the speedometer. You feel the road through the steering wheel. You hear the engine. Your brain keeps taking in all of that information and making tiny adjustments without you even noticing. You are not thinking, I need to turn the wheel 3.7 degrees to the left. Your brain reads the feedback and responds automatically. Now imagine trying to drive with your eyes shut. No speedometer, no feel for the road. You would crash instantly. Obvious, right? But here's the wild part. That is exactly how most people handle their money. They are driving blind. A 2022 study from the Financial Health Network found that 63% of Americans do not know their checking account balance within $500 at any given moment. 63%. And for investment accounts, the number jumps past 80%. People honestly do not know whether they have $8,000 or $12,000 in retirement, or whether they have $1,200 or $2,400 sitting in checking. They are making money decisions. Should I go out for dinner tonight? Should I buy this? Should I book this trip? And they are making those calls with no real awareness of their actual financial position. Then, when they do not move closer to their goals, they blame themselves for not having enough discipline or willpower. But that is not the real issue. The issue is that they are trying to improve a system they are not even measuring. Let me make this more concrete. Say your goal is to save $10,000 this year. That works out to around $833 a month. On a solid income, that sounds completely doable, right? But here is what usually happens. January 1st, you check your savings account. It has $2,400 in it. You feel pretty good. Then you do not look again until tax refund season in March. You log in and see $2,600. Nice. Some progress. You feel good about it. Then you do not check again until maybe June, when you start thinking about taking a vacation. You log in. It says $2,900. Okay, 6 months in and you are a little behind, but whatever. You check again in September. It is $3,100. Then December shows up, and you check one last time. $3,400. You saved $1,000 in a year, when your goal was $10,000. What happened? Lack of awareness. You made 1,000 tiny choices that year. Coffee runs, dinners out, impulse buys, subscriptions you forgot about. And every one of those decisions happened without real-time awareness of how it was affecting your goal. You were driving blind, and you drifted off course without even realizing it. The Morning Money Minute. So here's the intervention. And I really want you to hear this because it sounds almost ridiculously simple. Every single morning, within the first hour after you wake up, you are going to open your financial accounts and write down 3 numbers. That's it. You are going to write down your checking account balance, your total debt balance, and your investment account balance. You are not going to analyze them. You are not going to judge yourself. You're not going to build a plan. You are literally just going to look at the numbers and write them down. The whole thing takes less than 60 seconds. Open app, look at number, write it down. Open app, look at number, write it down. Open app, look at number, write it down. Close everything, then move on with your day. That is the entire habit. And what most people miss is this: that one act of observation can change your financial life more than any budget you have ever tried to follow. Let me explain. There is a neuroscience principle that basically says what you measure gets optimized. It is connected to something called the Hawthorne Effect, discovered back in the 1920s during productivity studies at the Western Electric factory. Researchers found that simply observing workers increased productivity, no matter what other intervention they tried. Measurement itself changed behavior. And this has shown up again and again in study after study across all kinds of areas. When people weigh themselves every day, they tend to lose weight, even if they do not consciously change their diet. When people track their steps, they walk more, even without a formal goal. When people monitor their screen time, it usually drops, even if no hard limits are set. The brain does not like being watched while acting against your goals, so it starts adjusting automatically beneath the surface. And that is where this gets especially interesting with money. Most financial decisions are made subconsciously. You are not opening a spreadsheet every time you decide whether to order DoorDash or cook at home. You are not doing a cost-benefit analysis every time you toss something into your Amazon cart. Those are subconscious choices, guided by what psychologists call heuristics. Mental shortcuts your brain uses to make fast decisions without spending a lot of energy thinking things through. And one of the strongest heuristics is current state awareness. Your brain is always asking, where am I right now, compared with where I want to be? But if you do not know where you are right now, if you have not checked your account in 3 weeks, your brain literally cannot make that calculation. So it defaults to whatever feels good in the moment, which is usually the thing that brings instant gratification. But when you check your accounts every morning, something changes. Now your brain has current state data. And throughout the day, every time you make one of those tiny decisions, your subconscious is comparing it to the numbers you saw this morning. You saw that you had $4,247 in checking when you woke up. Now it is 7 p.m., and you were thinking about ordering a $45 dinner. Your subconscious knows that means tomorrow you will have $4,202. And if you have been checking every morning for a few weeks, your subconscious also knows the trend. It knows whether that number has been rising or falling. It knows whether you are on track. And it starts nudging you toward decisions that improve tomorrow's number. Not because you are consciously forcing it, but because you created a feedback loop, and your brain naturally starts optimizing for the metric you are paying attention to. Let me nerd out for a second, because the brain science here is fascinating. There is a part of the brain called the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, or ACC, and one of its jobs is to monitor conflicts between your goals and your behavior in the moment. When there is a mismatch, like you want to save money, but you are about to spend it on something pointless, the ACC creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling you get when your actions clash with what you believe or want. Here is the key. The ACC can only create that dissonance if it has information about both your goal and your current state. If you never check your accounts, your ACC literally does not have enough data to create that uncomfortable signal. So you spend without tension. You drift without awareness. Your brain is not resisting you because it does not realize there is anything to resist. But when you check every morning, your ACC has current data. It knows exactly where you stand. And throughout the day, when you make choices that pull you away from your goals, it creates dissonance. You feel it. Not necessarily as guilt or shame, but as a subtle sense of, maybe I do not need this right now. That feeling is not coming from willpower. It is coming from awareness. Your brain is automatically steering you toward actions that reduce the dissonance. And the beautiful part is that most of this happens automatically. You do not have to think your way through it. You just have to give your brain the data. Here is one study that really makes the point. In 2019, researchers at Duke University ran an experiment with people trying to pay down credit card debt. They divided participants into 3 groups. Group 1 got a standard debt reduction plan with budgeting advice. Group 2 got the same plan plus weekly reminders to check their debt balance. Group 3 got the same plan, plus instructions to check their debt balance every single morning. After 6 months, Group 1 cut their debt by an average of $890. Group 2 reduced it by about $1,340. But Group 3 cut it by an average of $2,180, more than double Group 1 and well above Group 2. The only difference was how often they checked. Daily awareness beat weekly awareness, and weekly awareness beat occasional awareness. The more often you build the feedback loop, the more your subconscious starts optimizing for the metric you are tracking. Why traditional budgeting fails. Now maybe you are thinking, Bobby, I have tried tracking my money before. I have used budgeting apps. This does not sound that different. And I need to explain why this is totally different from traditional budgeting, because that distinction really matters. Traditional budgeting is prescriptive. It tells you how much you are allowed to spend in each category. It demands discipline, willpower, and constant decision-making. You have to ask yourself, Do I still have money left in my dining out category? Then, if the answer is no, you have to fight the temptation anyway. That is exhausting. It requires active mental effort over and over every day. And research shows that willpower is limited. The more you use it throughout the day, the less you have left. That is why so many budgets fall apart within 6 weeks. People run out of self-control. But the Morning Money Minute is not prescriptive. It is observational. It does not tell you what to do. It just creates awareness. And that awareness changes behavior automatically, without leaning on willpower. Here is an analogy. Imagine you are trying to lose weight. The budgeting approach is like following a meal plan that tells you exactly what you can eat and when. The awareness approach is stepping on the scale every morning. Why does daily weighing work so well in studies? Not because the scale is telling you what to eat. It works because awareness changes behavior subconsciously. You are at a restaurant. You look at the menu, and somewhere in the back of your mind is this morning's number. You saw 186 pounds this morning. The triple bacon burger probably is not going to move that number in the direction you want. So you order the salad. Not because some meal plan forced you to, but because your brain quietly guided you toward the option that better fits the metric you are measuring. That is what this is. You are not restricting yourself. You are simply observing. And the observation changes everything. The 3 numbers and why they matter. Let me explain why we track these 3 numbers in particular. Checking balance, total debt, and investments. These are not random picks. They reflect the 3 dimensions of financial health, and your brain needs all 3 to make smart decisions. Checking balance represents short-term safety and liquidity. It is your cushion for emergencies and your ability to handle immediate expenses. When you know that number, your brain can judge short-term risk accurately. Total debt represents your obligations and the pressure working against you. When you see that number every day, your brain starts treating debt payoff as a priority, because seeing a high number every morning creates tension. Your subconscious wants to lower that tension. So it begins steering you toward behaviors that reduce debt. And investments represent long-term security and future growth. When you see that number every day, it stops feeling abstract. It is no longer some distant, someday thing. It becomes real, current, and visible, and your brain starts wanting to see it climb. Here is what happens when you track all 3 together. Let's say your morning numbers are checking $3,840. Debt, $18,600. Investments, $12,400. Those are now real numbers in your brain. The next morning, you check again. Checking $3,795. Debt, $18,600. Investments, $12,400. Your checking dropped by $45. Your brain notices. It is not judging you, but it is aware. If checking keeps falling, while debt stays flat and investments stay flat, your subconscious starts to feel uneasy. The trend is wrong. So you begin making small adjustments. Maybe you skip that purchase. Maybe you move a little money into savings. Maybe you pack lunch instead of buying it. Those adjustments are not coming from a budget or some detailed plan. They are coming from your brain's natural tendency to optimize for the metrics it sees. Now, let's say a week later, your numbers are checking $3,680. Debt, $18,100. Investments,
$12,520.
Something interesting happened. Checking is still a little lower than where it started, but debt dropped by $500, and investments rose by $120. Your brain registers that as progress. The overall trend is good. You are moving in the right direction. That creates positive feedback. Your subconscious feels good about the trajectory, so it wants to keep doing the behaviors that support it. You are not sitting there consciously thinking through all of this. It is just happening. The compounding effect of daily awareness. Let me give you some actual math. Say you earn $65,000 a year. After taxes, you take home about $4,000 a month. Now let's say that without the morning money minute, you are a pretty normal person. You spend most of what you make. You kind of want to save, but it never happens consistently. Maybe you save $200 one month, spend it the next, save $300 2 months later, then an emergency wipes it out. Your net savings rate for the year ends up around 3% of income, about $1,920. Not awful, but not great. Now imagine you start the morning money minute. You check your 3 numbers every single day. You are not following a budget. You're not restricting yourself. You're just aware. Research suggests that awareness alone can raise your savings rate by anywhere from 4 to 7 percentage points. Let's stay conservative and call it 5 percentage points. Your savings rate rises from 3% to 8%. That becomes $5,200 per year instead of $1,950. That is a difference of $3,250 a year. Now compound that over 20 years at a 7% return. The aware version of you ends up with $225,000. The unaware version ends up with $85,000. That is a $140,000 gap created by a 60-second daily habit. And I am being conservative. Some of the studies I looked at suggest the effect can be even bigger, especially with debt payoff. Here is what most people do not realize. Small behavior shifts, repeated consistently over time, create massive differences in outcomes. We are not talking about dramatic lifestyle overhauls. We are talking about making slightly better, tiny choices every day because you know where you actually stand. You order takeout 1 less time a week. You hesitate before adding something to your cart. You send a little more into investments every month. None of those choices feels life-changing on its own. But over years, the cumulative effect is the difference between financial peace and financial stress. Now look, I know what some of you are thinking. Bobby, I do not want to check my accounts every day. It is depressing. I do not want to be reminded how little I have or how much debt I am carrying. And I get that. Financial avoidance is real. A 2021 study from Ostrich Effect research found that people are much less likely to check their investment accounts after market downturns because they do not want to see losses. They would rather not know. The same thing happens with checking accounts and debt. If you are broke, looking at the numbers hurts, so you avoid them. But here is the truth. Avoiding it does not change reality. Your checking balance is what it is whether you look or not. Your debt is what it is whether you acknowledge it or not. The only thing avoidance does is take away your ability to respond. You cannot manage what you do not measure. You cannot improve what you refuse to face. And here is the interesting part. Research shows that the pain of looking drops dramatically once it becomes routine. The first few mornings, it may feel uncomfortable if the numbers are not where you want them. But after about 2 weeks, it starts to feel neutral. It is just data. You are no longer emotionally fused with it. It is like stepping on a scale. The first time might sting, but after 2 weeks of doing it daily, it is just a number. You do not spiral into shame or judgment. You look, note it, and move on. That emotional neutrality is actually one of the most valuable parts of this habit. It lowers money anxiety while making you more aware and more responsive to your real situation. Another objection I hear is, I do not have investments, so this will not work for me. First of all, if you do not have investments, that is actually more reason to start. Because awareness will naturally push you toward opening an account. But second, you can still track 2 numbers, checking and debt, or checking and savings if you do not have debt. The principle stays the same. You are building awareness. Your brain will optimize for whatever you measure. If you only track checking, your brain will optimize for having more in checking. If you track checking and debt, it will optimize for raising checking and lowering debt. If you track all 3, it will optimize across all 3 dimensions. Work with what you have. Okay, let's talk implementation, because understanding a habit and actually doing it are 2 different things. Here is how to make the morning money minute stick. First, attach it to a habit you already have. This is called habit stacking, and it is one of the most reliable ways to build a new behavior. Pick something you already do every single morning without fail. For most people, that is making coffee or checking their phone. Your new habit becomes, after I start my coffee, I check my 3 numbers. Or before I open Instagram, I check my 3 numbers. The key is to attach it to a sequence your brain already runs automatically. Second, make it ridiculously easy. Put all your financial apps on your phone. Save your passwords. You should be able to open each app with 1 tap. Set them up so the balance shows immediately when the app opens. You should not have to click through menus. The easier this is, the more likely you are to actually do it. If checking your numbers means logging into a website on your laptop, hunting down your password, and clicking through multiple screens, it is not going to happen. Make it so easy that doing it takes less effort than avoiding it. Third, track it. I mean that seriously. Get a notebook or open a note on your phone and physically write down the 3 numbers every morning. Writing them down does a few important things. 1, it creates a record so you can see trends over weeks and months. 2, it forces you to actually register the numbers instead of glancing at them and forgetting 5 seconds later. 3, it builds a streak you will not want to break. Once you have written your numbers down for 30 straight days, you are not going to want to end that streak. It starts reinforcing itself. Fourth, set a reminder for the first 30 days. Put a daily alarm on your phone for whatever time you chose. After around 30 days, it will feel automatic, and you probably will not need a reminder. But those first 30 days matter for locking in the pattern. Do not depend on willpower to remember. Let technology do the remembering until the habit becomes automatic. What happens after 30 days? Here is the timeline I want you to understand. The first week is probably going to feel a little awkward. You are building a new routine. You may miss a day here and there. That is okay. Just restart the next morning. Do not let missing 1 day turn into a reason to quit. The second week is when you start noticing patterns. You will begin to see which direction each number is moving. You might notice that checking always dips on Fridays, because that is when you go out. You might see that your investments barely move day to day, but the weekly trend becomes clear. This is your brain beginning to process the data. Week 3 is when behavior changes start to show up. You will make a decision about a purchase, a meal, or a subscription, and you will notice yourself mentally factoring in the numbers you saw that morning. It will not feel dramatic or super deliberate. It will be subtle. A brief pause. A second thought. A slightly better decision than the one you used to make. This is your subconscious starting to optimize. Week 4 is when it starts to feel automatic. You no longer think about doing it. It becomes part of your morning, like brushing your teeth. And by that point, you will likely start seeing measurable changes in the numbers themselves. Your checking is a little higher than it was a month ago. Your debt is a little lower. Your investments are up. After 3 months, the changes become hard to ignore. People who consistently do the morning money minute for 90 days report, on average, a 15% improvement in their financial position across the 3 metrics. That is not from following a budget. That is not from taking a second job. That is purely awareness, changing behavior at the subconscious level. After 6 months, the habit is so baked in that skipping it would feel strange. At that point, you have created a feedback loop that will keep optimizing your finances as long as you keep it going. And here is the best part. It never gets harder. It is 60 seconds a day, forever. The effort never increases, but the payoff keeps compounding. Let me zoom out for a minute and talk about what this is really about. The Morning Money Minute is not just a trick to save more cash. It is about changing your relationship with money from avoidance to engagement. Most people treat their finances like a creepy basement they do not want to go into. They know there is stuff down there they should deal with, but it feels dark and uncomfortable, so they stay upstairs. They live their financial lives upstairs, making decisions without full information and hoping everything somehow works out. The Morning Money Minute makes you go into the basement every day. And you know what happens? The basement stops feeling scary. You realize it is just a basement. There is stuff down there. Some of it is good. Some of it needs work. But it is not a monster. It is just reality. And once you are comfortable with reality, you can start shaping it instead of just hoping and avoiding. This habit also builds financial resilience. When you check your numbers every day, an unexpected expense does not blindside you. You already know where you stand, so you can make an informed decision about how to handle it. You are not panicking and scrambling. You are calmly thinking, okay, I have $4,200 in checking. This expense is $850. That leaves me with $3,350, which is still above my threshold. I can handle that. Or, this drops me below my threshold, so I need to be more careful this week. You are in control because you have information. Compare that with someone who has not checked their accounts in 2 weeks. That unexpected expense feels terrifying because they do not know whether they can cover it. They are flying blind and every expense feels like it might be a disaster. So here is what I want you to do. I want you to commit to 30 days of the Morning Money Minute. 30 days. That is all. If after 30 days you honestly do not see any benefit, if your awareness has not changed, if your behavior has not shifted, if your numbers have not improved, fine, stop. You will have lost nothing except a total of 30 minutes over the course of a month. But I would bet that is not what will happen. I would bet that after 30 days, you will not want to stop, because you will have seen the difference. You will have felt the shift from financial avoidance to financial awareness. You will have watched your numbers start moving in the right direction, and you will want to keep that momentum going. Here is exactly what to do tonight. Right now, before you go to bed, download or open your banking app, your debt tracker or credit card app, and your investment app if you have one. If you do not have an investment account, open one this week. You can literally open a Fidelity or Vanguard account in 10 minutes with $0 and fund it later. Save your login so it is easy. Then set an alarm on your phone for tomorrow morning. Choose a time that fits your normal routine. For me, it is 7:15 a.m., right after my coffee starts brewing. Yours might be different. Set the alarm and label it Money Minute. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, spend 60 seconds checking your 3 numbers and writing them down. That is day 1. It will probably feel a little weird. Do it anyway. Day 2. Same thing. Day 3, same thing. By day 7, it will start feeling normal. By day 30, it will feel automatic. And by day 90, you are going to wonder how you ever managed money without this level of awareness. Look, I know this seems too simple to work. I know it feels like there should be more, a more complicated system, a more detailed plan, more effort. But that is exactly why it works. The best interventions are simple, because simple is sustainable. Complex systems fall apart when life gets busy. 60-second habits stick because they cost almost nothing to maintain. And small changes done consistently beat big changes done inconsistently. Every time. Your financial future is not decided by dramatic events or lucky windfalls or lottery tickets. It is decided by the 1,000 tiny choices you make every day. What you eat, what you buy, what you subscribe to, what you ignore, what you prioritize. Right now, you are making those choices without full information. You are guessing, hoping, and rationalizing. The Morning Money Minute gives you information, and information changes everything. It changes what your subconscious optimizes for. It changes which choices feel right. It changes which behaviors become automatic. All from 60 seconds of awareness every morning. So start tomorrow. Track your 3 numbers, write them down, then do it again the next day. And the day after that. 30 days from now, come back and watch this video again. I promise you, you will be watching it with different numbers in your accounts and a completely different relationship with your money. You will have moved from avoidance to awareness, from hoping to knowing, from drifting to optimizing. And it all starts with 60 seconds tomorrow morning. If this video resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. I'm going to keep making content about the psychology of money, the small shifts that create massive results, and the habits that actually stick. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. I will see you in the next one. Now go set that alarm.